every cliche thing is true. It's just annoying. Like enjoy the journey, not the destination. I'm like, shut up, dude. I'm trying to get rich. I don't need a journey. I just want to be rich. But I will say that really it's all these hardships. It's like me going to India, trying to find myself, realizing I'm myself. I've always been myself. Same for everyone out there. And these journeys really is the whole thing. Like, look at Titanic. It's the top 3 selling movie all time. Everyone knows the ending, but we still watched it. Why? Because we want the journey.
Welcome back to the You Can Too podcast. On today's show, we have founder of AppSumo, 30th person at Facebook, 4th at Mint, YouTuber. Honestly, when I was thinking of how to prep for you, I was thinking there's probably more things that there's less things that you aren't than you are, right? You've done so many things. Cyclist, chess player, I can dive into everything. But I want to start early on in your journey, man, because like I said, I'm grateful for your time and I want to make the most of it. Early on in your journey, do you believe that people are born entrepreneurs? Because I know that you were the kid at Costco selling the candy kind of thing.
I believe people are more inclined, but everyone can do it. There's a lot of basic people. There's a lot of genius people. There's a lot of stupid people getting rich through entrepreneurship. And especially on the YouTube channel, like I came from tech, right? Like I came from Silicon Valley where like my friend in high school sold his company to Cisco for $1 billion. My other best friend was Boris, is number 20 at Lyft. My other best friend, Marty, I have a lot of best friends, early at Stripe. Right. So these guys, and girls were definitely around it, made it easier. But through the YouTube channel and through being in social media and blogging and all this stuff, so many people can be entrepreneurs and it's available. I think there's definitely sometimes in YouTube world, like you need this course or I have some expertise that you just don't have. And that's really just not true. And the YouTube stuff I've seen personally, like Jan got rich through strawberries. Strawberries. What's his name? Larry Janeski got rich in basements. There's just such a variety. Michael Hudner, we put out, he's, I don't know if he's worth $1 billion, but he's done billions and he's worth millions. And he got rich through ships. And so there's just such an interesting way that, if you ask these people if they're entrepreneurs, they'd even say no. They're just like, hey, I really liked these areas of business. And they weren't out to become super rich or be entrepreneurs. They're just like, hey, we really like this stuff. And through sticking with it, getting started, number one, which most people just don't do, and sticking with it, they were able to have the lives and careers and entrepreneurship that they dreamed of.
Yeah, that's your superpower, right? Is getting started in things. I think, was it 24 businesses before AppSumo? It
was a lot. Yeah, I was joking about it with someone recently because most of the most successful people have had the most failures is really the truth. If you really think about, even let's say Bezos, everyone knows him, the Fire Phone and all these kind of obvious examples, but it even applies to people that are getting going. Right. They're in there doing something. Like from $1 Million Weekend, the book, the number one takeaway is now, not how, which is just get going. Don't worry about your website. Like I've had a $30 million business without a website. It was called Gambit. We did payments for games because my customers didn't care if I had a website. They cared if I could help their business. And that's what it all comes down to. So I've done a lot that didn't work, even with AppSumo, right? I was excited about the problem. I think that's what people miss out on is like, what's a problem you have that you're excited about? Maybe it's like yourself. Hey, I want to meet interesting people, create content. Great. Because maybe there's not content that you like out there. And with AppSumo, I was excited to help promote software tools. That's what I realized through 10 years of trying things. I was like, either I got fired or it didn't work, but I was like, oh, I like this promoting thing. And that led me to be able to do AppSumo. But when I started AppSumo, I started softwaretaco.com. I started rewardlevel.com. I tried to do fish bowls in restaurants, these fish bowls where I would try to get business cards from people and create email lists for local businesses. So I've just tried so many different things that didn't work, but it eventually led me to something that did. But I kept starting again. And now AppSumo, almost $100 million a year business, which is insane. It's just insane. And, running that day to day and all the things it's amazing. But it was by getting going. A lot of things don't work. And that's why the book is $1 Million Weekend. We all have a weekend, whether, someone's, has a lot of time or whether you have a family. I've seen both people have that success.
Yeah. That perspective is really powerful. When I started my podcast, started in my car because I couldn't do interviews at the time, but it was getting started. Right. And I knew that I wanted to speak with people just like you. Like when I first started this podcast, you were on the top 100 people on the guest list that was a dream guest. So it's awesome. It's such a full circle moment. But
dude, hell yeah, good respect to you, man. I hope I was number 69 in your top 100. And same with our YouTube channel. Like our YouTube channel just hit 1 million subs, which is cool. But what I think is even cooler is that I started it with my phone shirtless in my little house. If you go back 3 years, you can see me shirtless, just finished a bike ride. And I was just talking about something. Didn't get a lot of views, got maybe a few hundred. And that was enough. And then I just did another one. I put a shirt on. But over 3 years and sticking with it, I talk about Law of 100. And that's something in the book where it's like, stick with something because we all quit too soon. But get started, stick with things. And, that's led from making my first $12 sale on AppSumo to now we do, what do we do? Yesterday we did $173,000 in a day, which is unbelievable, promoting software deals. And that all because we just got started. Same with the YouTube channel. Now first video got 300 views. Now the videos can get, I think this recent video got like 36,000 views in a day. And we were like, it's not doing well, which is still just unbelievable. And it's so cool that, I think with entrepreneurship, James, the best part is that we can all live the lives we want. And that doesn't mean you have to make millions. It means you can make enough for groceries, like Jennifer, and this woman who sells cookies. She read the book and she's a teacher in Dallas, or other people like, just other people out there like Jake. He's like, hey, I didn't want to wonder what if. Like, I didn't want to wonder what if. And for me, it was risky to have a day job that these people could fire you and you had no options. So I was like, okay, let's do this entrepreneurship thing.
That was my exact thought as well. I know your income was, or your thought was, I just want to get to 3K a month.
Exactly.
And AppSumo was 300K your first year and then 3 mil the second year, correct? Like the exponential growth was profound. But I want to dive into your relationship with yourself because I think that
fuck,
that
dude,
has
why you guys always do this shit. You guys always got to pull out that. Let's just talk about making money,
man.
No, it's fine. Go for it.
It has an impact on it, right? I think was it last year where it was your word or phrase of the year was be nice to Noah. Was it last year or the year before that? It was something like that.
Yeah, the past this year was grounded, and then the past 2 to 3 years before that was be nice to Noah and then be kind.
Yeah. So what was your relationship like growing up? Because I know that you grew up near Apple headquarters, like the tech entrepreneur space was always in your mind, but did you believe that it was a possibility, or was that just something that kind of came into fruition through building so much?
I have a friend that makes $10 million a year. He has 2 $5 million houses. And then he hung out with another person who's got a private jet. And the reality in all of it, and this is not about being rich. Being rich is great, and we can talk about that. I've lived very poor for 20 years, so I'm finally living rich, and it's really cool. But the point I was making is that in life, a lot of us aren't optimistic enough, and we also don't realize what levels are available to us. We think there's just like some secret code that only Harvard people have. That was at least my belief for a long time. Same with you asked about how I'm feeling about myself. That's same with how I felt about myself. Like, am I ever going to be at peace with myself? Am I ever going to find a great woman find a great woman? Am I ever going to finally like my work? And it's something that's taken a long time, maybe 20 years, but really the past few years where I'm finally like so content. And I don't think my life is that much different, right? Like if you look back 3 years ago, I was pretty rich. I was like, not working very much, doing some content, all this stuff. But I was pretty damn miserable. And then you fast forward today, my life is really not that much different, right? But through certain things, we can explore it. I'm like, damn, what a crazy life I get to live. This is so cool. And guess what? Everyone else can do that too. It's not some exclusive thing. So if you go back, you were asking me about 10 years ago, right? Or 20 years ago. I think I was just frustrated that I got fired. I was fired at Facebook. I felt jealous that all these other people seemed to know what they were doing in life and I didn't. And then I knew I wanted to be rich. I was like, oh man, I just liked business. I liked money. Like that's my superpower. And I was like, I don't know, I want to get rich, but how's everyone else doing it but me? And so this book, $1 Million Week, does it felt like it is my own journey that I can share now with others because I've done it so many times and been able to help others do it for themselves.
Yeah. When you think of, or at least I think of this, is when you were at Intel, you were known as the person that was sleeping at their desk, right? Like barely worked. And then now you see the person, as you said earlier, is like, you have the mindset of the go, go, go. I've heard you speak about another podcast where you feel like if you're not doing something, you have like some kind of anxious feeling in you. And I feel for a lot of my audience, that's definitely a trait that a lot of people have, I think, is because same as you, is we feel like the underdog almost. I know when you left Facebook, that was the kind of the mindset, right? So how has that changed over time, or has that even changed over time?
One, good job on your research, man. I appreciate it. A lot of the people show up unprepared, and I'm doing the same thing. Like when I'm going on Tim Ferriss on Friday. And that's you'll be your own James Bracken the fourth, which is fucking cool. You're a fourth.
Thank you.
You yourself, and I'm doing the Noah Kagan way, and it's preparing. Like, how are we showing up prepared for these things? And it's not a surprise sometimes. Like with this book, $1 Million Weekend, and with going on Tim or whatever, it's like how much are we preparing for this stuff? And then it's less of a surprise if it does well. But a lot of times we're just showing up and winging it. And we're like, oh, I don't know why that didn't go well. I'm like, you just kind of didn't do anything. So you were asking what changed? Pardon me.
Yeah. I mean, like the mindset of, like, because I know early on it was at Intel and then a few other jobs that you had where it was just kind of like just really like coasting, I guess is the best way I can phrase it for a lot of people, is they have the mindset, I'm just going to coast and see what kind of happens. But it seemed like there was a flip that kind of switched for you, where now it's just a go, go, go kind of mindset. Like, when did that switch? The hard work mindset, I guess, maybe.
Where do you think your audience is at? Like, most of the people that are listening to you and looking to you for inspiration, like, where are they in their lives and what do they want?
I think a lot of people are in a position where you were at Intel, kind of lacking purpose, feeling like they need to create something more for themselves, but they haven't. Great audience for the book. That's why a big reason I want to have you on, of course. But just
Thanks,
a
man.
lot of people that don't believe it's possible. That's the purpose of the podcast. Is a lot of people have beliefs that don't serve them. They need to change the beliefs to change the behavior, to change the results. And at the core is the belief that it's possible.
Yeah, it's to believe that it's possible, man. And the thing that I would say is it doesn't happen immediately,
Mhm.
right? For the people out there, but it's by starting, right? The biggest takeaway in this book by far in Million Dollar Weekend is now, not how. And it's just that people get going, right? You do get going, and that will lead you in some direction. And maybe immediately, it took me 10 years to finally find out what I wanted to do. And ideally, people can find it a lot fucking sooner. I knew it wasn't a day job, but I didn't know that I could have this dream life. So what I'd recommend for everyone out there, and this is what I still do this day, is write out your fantasy. And guess what? You can write whatever fucking fantasy you want. And just write out a fantasy, and what I'd highly encourage is write out your fantasy for a 1 year period. I did 10 years ago, and it's actually all come true. And now I do really focus more on 1 year. I think that's more achievable and more realistic. And just write all the things you think you could do. Like, James Bracken has a #1 podcast. James Bracken is living in Japan. Where do you live now, James?
I'm in upstate New York.
Upstate New York, and then somewhere else. James Bracken is driving a Ferrari. And then eventually you kind of like write your fantasy and you're like, hey, what would be exciting for me in this upcoming year?
Mhm.
And then really thinking about that. And that helps you also realize that you can do more things than you realize. I would say for myself, being an Intel, I knew I didn't want to have a day job. That felt risky, just living a what if life. This what if, like what I always regret. And there's people that were so much, and you had talked about entrepreneurship. There's people that were so much more intelligent and harder working than me.
Yeah.
At Intel, like this guy named Rick. He was just so much better than me. And we'd be in meetings and I'd be like, dude, you're so much smarter than me. But he was afraid. And to me, it was scarier to stay at this job that sucked. Intel sucks. Day jobs mostly suck. And I was willing not to take a risk, but I was willing to just at nights and at weekends and at mornings. That's why the book's called Weekend, which we all have. We have 52 of them. You do, I do. To just do a little bit more to try to plant seeds that eventually I can get the hell out of there. And so I was trying a lot of stuff, and most of the successful people have tried the most things, and most of those things don't work. So I did conferences, did networking events, built college websites like collegeup.org. Yep. I built freecalls2.com.
Come Get Used, Everspeed. There's so many.
Come Get Used, Everspeed.com, which is a import car website. That was really fun. And just playing around with things and just exploring curiosity, trying to get the hustle on, trying to get the reps in. And, if I had to zoom out of these things, I would do it a lot differently, and we can talk about that. But I'd say the 20s, it's okay to just be patient fucking around, and trying a lot of stuff out, like trying sales out, I lived in my mom's house for 2 years, lived in my aunt's basement for a year, lived on floors for a year. I finally started rent at around 30, but I was just trying a lot of things out to eventually be able to get to that point where I could do the thing I really wanted to do, which ultimately became AppSumo. But zooming out of these things, I will say having a therapist helped. I had therapy. I've pretty much been in therapy since I was 20. And I think it's just nice to have an outlet, not because you have problems, but just someone to talk to about anything. Like I literally just, and that I still do this day. Literally 3 hours ago, I was meeting with Dan Putt, who's a business coach. And we mostly just talk about how I'm feeling. Mm-hmm. And that applies a lot in business. I'd say secondly, in 20s and 30s, like, are you around positive people? Like I'm with my buddy Tynan.com. I love this guy. He doesn't like marketing. That's why he's friends with me and I do all his marketing. But every time I talk with him, he's just like, life is so much more awesome than you realize. Like zoom out of your life. No, like you're rich. And I was rich for a long time now, but I wasn't happy with it. He's like, you're healthy. You're pretty above average good looking, not hot, but like above average. And he's like, life is so much better than you realize. Not about gratitude, just zooming out of our lives. And then over time, if you keep working on saying nice things to yourself, which sounds so cheesy, but it really works. Just on like a daily basis, like just say some kind shit to yourself. And then you do that repeatedly over time. just like, I'm a pretty great person. What other things can I do in this great life? Then yeah, all these things combined over some period of time have led me to 41, where I'm like, damn, I'm so lucky at 41. This is a great life.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a quote from Tom Bilyeu that always sits with me, is that all that matters is how you feel about yourself when you're by yourself. Because so many of us are going for the next thing, right? And we don't think about, how do I actually feel when I'm by myself? Disregard all the external things, but internally, that's what matters most. And you said you do it differently, right? Like, do you think that therapy had the biggest impact on the relationship with yourself that shifted, or that allowed you to almost open space for kind of who you are rather than kind of strive to achieve, to be something more almost?
and this is something that I'd rather have everyone. It's better to be rich and unhappy than poor and unhappy.
Oh yeah.
Like, at least you're rich and happy. You can like hire help. You don't have to worry about certain things. Like, you have to, all you have to do then is focus on yourself.
Right.
I definitely think therapy has made a big impact in having different coaches. Like, I've had a relationship coach, I've had a business coach. I have these different, and then I have positive people around me. I do think it's around, how do you stop chasing external validation and then start chasing internal validation. So instead of chasing views, instead of chasing money, instead of chasing that, I want to prove these people wrong, like, just prove yourself right. And that takes time. I really think I kind of expected it, like, if I got $1 million, then I'd finally be happy. And then I got $1 million, and I was like, God damn, I'm not happy with this stuff. And everyone talks about different buckets. I think most advice, frankly, most people know. Maybe if you're young and you don't know marketing, like, I can teach you marketing. If you don't know, like, asking and starting for $1 million weekend, I can help you with that. But I think what it comes down to a lot of times is that there's hard decisions that seem scary and that we just don't want to face them. And then when we finally face it and we realize we have courage and it's not as scary as we think, we realize, like, wow, maybe there's more I can do. Maybe there's a better person in me than I realize. And so with me, it was, breaking up with my fiance, which I basically dragged that out for 3 years. And that, by the way, shout out to, not even a shout out. I would tell everyone, just take yourself more seriously and your partner selection more seriously. And I just didn't choose a great dating partner for many, many years. Like, the women were great. I just wasn't choosing the right person for me. And so I finally spent a lot of time working on that. And then same with work. It was just like finding work you actually want to do and working hard on it makes you feel fucking great about yourself. And then, just doing things alone that you feel good about who you are. Like, a lot of times, let's say I'm about to get hella drunk, right? I'm not drinking all the time, but like, I'm about to have a beer and I'm like, does this make you proud of yourself? Or about to do drugs. And I'm like, does it make you proud of yourself, like who this is? And it's like, no, damn it, it doesn't. All right, I'm not going to do it. And it doesn't mean drinking's not bad. I had a beer last night. I got drunk, like a week ago. It's more like doing things that make you proud of who you are. And this kind of coming back internally versus all the external things. So that's been definitely the biggest thing over a very long period of time.
Yeah, I've heard you speak about the microwaved life mindset kind of thing. That's the kind of way, the lens you see it through. When you went to dinner with Peter Thiel and he had an iPhone 8, did that have an impact on you realizing that it wasn't the external things, or was that just like something that evolved over time? Because it seems like that's a common thread.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that I felt like, the way I look at it, I felt like I was chasing for so long, chasing for happiness.
Yeah.
I was talking to a guy recently, and I was talking about finding peace. He's like, well, that's your problem. You can't find it. You just have to be it. And I was like, God damn it, I can't buy it on Amazon. Or like, why does everyone else seem so peaceful? And realizing everyone's going through their own thing. So it's hard to know how others are really doing. I've seen the happiest couples break up and the least happy couples stay together. So it's really hard to know about others, but it's really understanding what you can control and deal with for yourself. And so with Peter Thiel, I wasn't about external validation or chasing with him. That's more about my own self, right? Like looking at others, going to therapy, talking about being jealous of other creators that have more followers, or people who have more money, or they talk about they have more money, but they're actually really poor. And I've worked so hard, and I can talk about these numbers because I have them, and I'm proud of them. But with Peter Thiel specifically, I think what was fascinating about meeting with him, besides one, he dressed like shit. Right. I think that was like maybe one of the bigger takeaways, is that you think the most successful people are also the most organized and the most clean and most disciplined, and he's not. And you're like, oh shit, this guy's a multi-billionaire, funded Facebook, funded Palantir, like did so many crazy, amazing things, and he's a slob, dresses like shit with old technology. And it also makes me realize, like, not be so harsh and guilty on myself if I'm not journaling every morning, or if I don't meditate yoga 4 times a day.
That's it.
it's more finding the life that works for you. And so for me today, I woke up and I fucked around my computer for an hour first thing. After like looking at my girlfriend, I was like, nice. Just looking at her in bed, I was like, this is a great life. And after that, I was like, okay, let's look over. I always use a 3x5 card. I was like, let's look at our 3x5 card. All right, there's things you want to do. Let's do some things that always make you feel good too. So like I did journal, I did go biking, I did go in my sauna, I did jump in the freezing pool. But afterwards, and I didn't have to do it. And so I think with Peter Thiel, it's kind of crazy that this guy is so rich, and there's no one way to get rich. It's whatever. There's different ways and different lifestyles. I think the other thing that was fascinating about him was just how much of a real contrarian he is. True contrarian, deep thinker, like deep thinker. Talking about how governments are the best monopolies because they have unlimited resources. You're like, what? Governments is a business that's a monopoly. Talking about, I think he was saying that Bill Gates works for China. He's like a Chinese spy. I don't know, just shit like that. I was like, what are you talking about, man? But then he would actually be able to back it up and have certain claims on it. And I also like, he follows that with his investments. So it was very lucky. I think for others out there as well, how I got it is also just as interesting. Like someone emailed me and they said, hey, you could pay $3,500 to have dinner with Peter Thiel. And I paid instantly. Like before the email was even read, the money was sent. And so thinking about for ourselves, really like how do we be around excellence and people with high standards and people that are thinking differently, either sometimes through podcasts, but also just through like, how do you be in their radius?
Yeah. And
if you get those opportunities, going and doing whatever it takes to be there.
Yeah, that's a massive reason I started this podcast was I seen someone that's doing extraordinary things. I want to be surrounded by them in some way. Let me see how I can provide value. And you being 30th at Facebook, 4 at Mint, you meet with billionaires, the YouTube, it's amazing. I love the series that you have going. I think it's different than a lot of people. There's a reason it stands out. What are some of the things that you've noticed, common threads that you've noticed within the people that you've surrounded with? As you spoke about earlier, it's the people you surround yourself with is massive.
Well, I can tell you about who I'm surrounded by and then I can tell you about the billionaires I interview. With the billionaires I interview, and I've worked for, 4 or 5 of them, worked at Microsoft as an intern, met Bill Gates, hung out at his house. That was crazy. Worked directly for Zuckerberg, Dustin Moskovitz, Adam D'Angelo, Charlie Cheever. And then all the ones I've interviewed, most of them didn't set out to get rich, which I think is kind of the counterintuitive thing. None of them were like, I'm trying to be a billionaire. A lot of the people who are like talking about that don't end up getting there. And so what's happening in that pattern? Right. The pattern is they're just finding some problem that they really liked. And they're like, I'm just going to work on this problem for a very long period of time. And they're not so focused just on the money. All the richest people could have stopped working a long time ago, but they keep working. So I really love that, where, Zuckerberg didn't have a big vision where it is now, but he did get going. He was like, I really like this connecting people because I'm a loner and I have no friends. And it was like, if I could bring them together, maybe there's something there. And that did work. And then he created a bigger vision. So I do think that's also another call out, which is they found problems they were interested in, and then they were able to change their vision over time, right? Like you're able to change the level of the game you're playing at. Yeah. Second thing from John Paul DeJoria, this was 2 things he said that were really, really significant was like, be really good at sales and find something to sell that you like and that people need to reorder. So again, I'll say that. Be good at sales, find something you like, and do something that's in the reorder business. So he was homeless twice, but he found hair care. He found this guy, John Paul, who was really good at making this hair care product. And he was like, I like this product. Plus he has great hair. 2, he's really good at sales. He practiced it a lot when no one was buying things. And 3, people buy hair care products a lot.
Right.
So I thought that was a super good one. And then for myself, definitely a lot of how rich I am. I don't know. It's all relative, right? There's definitely more people rich. I'm rich enough. Let's just say that. I think right now today I have about 20 million cash in the bank, which is unreal. It's kind of cool to look at. But it's also just zeros and ones. Like you could also go to your own bank account, just add a zero and imagine it, and then make it real. I mean, by working your ass off. I would say a lot of the 20 million cash, this is including all this other stuff. A lot of it is just being around really great people. And then it's like, well, how do I get around really great people? All right, let me tell you. So most of my best friends, I have about 20 best friends. Love it. They're not always the richest. I just look for interesting people. That's it. Like Tynan, you can go to Tynan.com. I love this guy. Yep. He's just one, why I fucking love him? Because he's always positive. And I go to him and I'm like, AppSumo sucks. My girlfriend sucks. She did all this crazy shit. I'm sucking. He's like, bro, life's pretty great. Let's go have some tea. I'm like, okay. And then let's talk about why life isn't great and let's work through it. And I was like, that's great. Or my buddy Adam Gilbert from mybodytutor.com. I met him when he had like no customers. And I don't even think he was making maybe 6 figures, barely. And he was always looking out for me. And he was always really positive, and he was always really talking about like, Noah, what did you do for workout today? I was like, fuck, man, I don't know. I'm like, my girlfriend just dumped me. He's like, okay, well, what can you do for yourself today? I was like, I can go for a walk. He's like, great. And then he checks in with me later. And so it's more looking, and we came up with a framework, Gebby. That was an old one I haven't talked about as much, but it's like gratitude, exercise, breakfast, you. And those are all 4 things in our control, right? That's what I like in business. That's what I want a job, right? I don't have no control over my job. This one person above me does, my future. But gratitude, you can be happy about yourself, one thing. Exercise, you can go for a walk. Breakfast, you control that, and something you can do for yourself. So yeah, in terms of that, I was just kind of actively looking for people that I found interesting and that also gave a shit about me. And there's a lot of people I know because I helped them when they were small. I think that's another kind of hack I've used over the years, like look for pre-fluencers. So look for people you find interesting before they're popular, like you. I saw your stuff. I looked it up after I got recommended to you. I was like, oh, I like this guy. He looks like he's going somewhere. So I wanted to be around you. And so a lot of my friends, it wasn't like, oh, you're rich, I've got to have some transactional value and network with you. It was like Andrew Chen. He was a child prodigy. I met him at a barbecue, and I said, hey, I'd really like to write a book about child prodigies in Chinese. And then I just stayed in touch. We started the book, and I ended up finishing it. But we stayed in touch. And then 20 years later, he's a venture capitalist at the #1 venture firm in the world. And he's given some of the most valuable advice to help AppSumo get to where it is today, at $80 million a year business. So again, it's just being intentional, and I enjoy it, and finding these people. And it's not, I have to go talk to them and I have to go connect. It's like, I'm looking for it, and I like it, and I want to be around them. And ideally I'm helping them too.
This podcast is kindly brought to you by Magic Mind. Now, if you're anything like me, you love coffee, but you hate the jitters that it gives you in that 2 p.m. slump in the afternoon when you still have a lot of day left, but you're not able to be focused throughout that time. And this is why I love Magic Mind. I've been taking it with my morning coffee. It's a small productivity shot that I absolutely love. It's with matcha, which takes longer to release in your body. So instead of feeling slumped at 2 p.m., you actually have that intentional focus, and it reduces stress. So I take it with my morning coffee. It helps me drink less coffee, but actually feel focused and not wired throughout the day, which is so impactful, because if you're a podcaster or you're taking calls or you're just in general, you need to be focused and have that mental energy. It's been something that's really helpful for me. I've been using it for a few weeks, and I guarantee that you will like it. So if you're anything like me and you want to feel focused but not wired, you can go to magicmind.com/youcan2 for 56% off. Yes, 56% off your first subscription. And for your first one-time payment, you can get 20% off, which is insane to say the least, because they have a 100% money back guarantee with no questions asked. And instead of waiting 3 to 5 days for that money back, they'll refund you in 3 to 4 hours, because they believe in it, and I believe in it so much. So that's magicmind.com/youcan2 for up to 56% off your first subscription. And if you already use Magic Mind, you can get a discount off your next subscription payment as well. So it's magicmind.com/youcan2. Try it for a few weeks, see if you like it. I bet you that you will, and you will feel a lot more intentional with your day instead of just so wired and really just exhausted by the end of the day. Back to the episode. Yeah. Yeah, like the conferences, like instead of, you didn't have necessarily people to connect with, but you brought 2 and 2 people together, and that allowed you to build more relationships, right? Like early on when you were doing the conferences to build relationships almost even, and then turned into a business, a part of that, which is awesome as well.
Yeah,
It seems
there's a lot of good books. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're good. I was just gonna say, it seems like relationships are at the core of everything, and you just speaking on that so much just continues to reaffirm it.
Yeah, I mean, part of success is just being where success is happening, right? And even if, Tony Robbins has a quote like, success leaves crumbs, so you can just look at what successful people are doing. But I also think if you're just in the arena of success, you're going to benefit. So take appsumo.com. When I started, there was 10 people there's 10 software products to promote, and we're the #1 site for software deals. Now we are. And I guess we were then, because there's only 10. So I promoted a few of them. But we were just in the success area where software was getting bigger. And I do talk about that in $1 Million Week and how do you look for that stuff. And then because now it went from 10 to like, now there's maybe, 10,000. So just being around it, our business grew as well, just from being in the right place. And that's true for your network and your relationships. Like being out there, tweeting, podcasting, YouTube, whatever it is, I think one of the best benefits is just like how it becomes a magnet to meet cool people. And you don't even have to be in front of the camera. Jeremy, who runs our YouTube channel to help get it to 1 million subs, he was always behind the camera. And now he's out doing his own agency, helping others.
Yeah, it's extraordinary. It really is. There's one challenge that has stuck with me for probably close to 3 years, the coffee challenge. You've said it 1,000 times. I've done it for almost every time I've went out somewhere, which is
Wow.
powerful. As soon as you brought it up to me, or spoke about it in your videos, it was like, so many people are terrified of rejection, and it was just something like, that is the simplest thing to do. It's actionable. I can just go and do it right now. There's no hesitation to it. Let me just go do this, and it's built a habit over it. Whether it's in the book or just in your everyday life, is there any other challenges that you continue to reinforce?
Yeah. For other people out there with $1 Million Weekend, one of the things I love is that you can change your life in a weekend. And
Yeah,
what the reality is that we're all afraid of stuff. We're just afraid of different things. It doesn't matter, no matter where you still have fears. We all do. They just have either bigger fears. Uh, there's a Jim Rohn quote: "It doesn't get easier, you just get better." And I
yeah,
like that. And I'm still afraid when I ask. Last weekend, I was in Vegas, and there's a woman wearing gray shoes. This is another challenge that I like to do, and we can talk about the coffee challenge just to teach people who maybe haven't done it.
for sure.
And I was eating breakfast, and I didn't sleep a lot because I was just working a lot and doing a book tour. And this woman's wearing these shoes, and I was like, oh, I want to know what shoes those are in case I want to get them for my girlfriend. And this is part of the challenge. And so I was like, within 3 seconds, we all have this negotiation period that we can either do something or not do something. So I just don't negotiate with terrorists. So I don't negotiate with myself. So when I get the idea that I have to do it, I go do it. So I just went up to her and I was like, sorry to bother you. I really love your shoes. She's like, thank you so much. So where'd you get them from? She's like, JC Penney's. I was like, wow, that's a good deal. And then I went and sat down. And most of the fear that we think is going to be scary is not as scary. And the upside of finding out things, the upside of asking, the upside of selling, which John Paul DeJoy became, I don't know, worth $3.5+ billion, is from because he became an asking expert. And that's everyone can too do that. And so these challenges, like the coffee challenge, where you ask for 10% off whenever you buy coffee, is a practice in facing yourself, facing fear and rejection, overcoming it, and realizing sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't, but you can do it. You can do it. And what I noticed in helping others start businesses and myself, there's just 2 fears that hold them back. And one is starting, right? Just getting going right now. Like you doing in your car is awesome, man.
Yeah.
Like that's literally showing where, and look where you are today. You have a sign. You're in a room, you have a nice mic. But you didn't start that way. You started and stuck with it. That's why I've talked in the book about law of 100, which is like getting started right now. Don't worry about the how. And then how do you not quit, which is law of 100, so you can stick with things. And the second biggest one is asking. It's like, how do we get better at asking for a customer, asking for a raise, asking for a date? That's all this business stuff is. Like AppSumo.com, we ask a partner if we can promote their software at a great price. That's it. And if they say cool, then we get to go have a fun time promoting it. And so the 2 challenges, one, the coffee challenge is 10% off whenever you buy anything in person. And the second one is the compliment challenge. So this is one, probably do it once, twice a week. I just go up to someone and compliment them. I'm like, dude, I love your shirt. Just like these shoes. Where'd you get it from? Urban Outfitters. Okay. And I just do it mostly because I'm curious where they buy their clothes from. But it's also a nice way to practice the fear. And it's not that it's like I'm not nervous. I'm like, oh man, I don't want to bug them. You're actually surprised. This is what we do when we want to sell something. We're like, I'm bugging them, I'm annoying them. But I'm giving them a compliment, and most of the people, literally 99%, have always been happy. They're like, oh my God, thank you so much. And then I say, oh, where'd you get it from? They're like, I got it from here. And I'm like, have a great day. And so that's a little one that people can do in these small, low stakes circumstances so that they can build up their muscle. And then they start doing it for a customer. Then they start doing it for a client. Then they start doing it for an e-commerce sale. And then they're like, holy shit, what else can I ask for?
Yeah. It's like the thought of giving someone a compliment or thinking a compliment to someone and not giving it to them is like getting them a gift and not giving it to them. I always think of that in my everyday life, because if I'm holding on to a compliment, it's like I'm almost hurting myself, hurting them by not giving it to them, which is something that I've definitely done for a long time as well. And like you said, most people are happier that you do it regardless anyway. So it's a small habit that makes a big difference. And you, like, I think I watched a video of yours when you were in first class, paid $5,000, go in first class and asking everyone what they're doing, right? Like, it must have been terrifying. There's a little bit of fear. I definitely know that you spoke about it, but you still, and every single person was doing something different. I know one of the guys was like, did a bunch of things with dogs or something. And it's like, it's insane what you can do and build. And there's just so many different ways to go about it, which is crazy.
What's a compliment for yourself for this year?
Showing up 2 episodes a week for a year straight. I think that the consistency that I've showed up for is really awesome. Like you said, the rule of 100, I did 100 solo episodes before I even had a podcast with someone else, which is cool.
Good for you.
When you think of key concepts of the new book that you want to instill into people, is there one that comes to mind that you've just written about? Because I'm curious to like what some lessons you learned about yourself through writing it, but I want to talk about some concepts.
Yeah. Yeah. I was afraid of this book. Some of these people that come on and they have so much conviction, most of the people that have a lot of conviction are the most scared. And they're actually wrong, but they talk so certain. Yeah. Yes, this is law. It's like the only law is gravity in physics. I don't know about these other things. I like that Elon has a line around that.
Yeah.
And so we all have a journey in us. We all have a hero's journey in us. And I think most people know the hero's journey. It's like you struggle, you have help, you fail, you overcome, and then you succeed. And we all have it in us. The book is dedicated to everyone willing to take a chance on themselves. And I've always felt like an underdog, and I always felt like doubted on, and all these people didn't want me to succeed, and I'm supposed to stay middle class, like all these like voices in our head. And I promise that it is possible for us to feel better. It's possible for us to start facing some fears. Like that's what I had to face with this book. Can I actually help others? Can I really put a book together that's been my dream for 15 years? And I will say that if you do something that you want and you work your ass off on it, that at the end of it, if it succeeds, I can't promise that. But can I say that I'm proud of myself? Yes. And I think that's a big takeaway from the book and really from starting a business and from being an entrepreneur. It's facing the fear of starting. All right, well, how do I just do something now? Like I talked to this guy, Jake, and he wanted to start a business for 2 years. And he's like, I've been waiting for the right time and money and I need help. And then in 48 hours, he was able to get 5 customers. And I checked in with him literally a few hours ago. And he's like, oh, I've got these. He's doing golf trips. He's like, yeah, it's coming up in April. And now I have even more customers. But it's because his action begat his confidence. His action begot results. And he was able to move forward. So in terms of concepts, people doing it, and for myself as well, it's like facing a few fears of getting going, facing a few fears of rejection, which, the coolest part of these YouTube videos, I face rejection, but I get all these cool upside. I get to go on a private jet. I get to go on a yacht. I get to go and find out really interesting people. I got to go on someone's sailboat, like this $1 million plus sailboat, just because I asked.
Yeah.
And facing asking, and then getting going in business is literally one of the coolest ways to learn about yourself and create a life that you can only dream of. And guess what? You can live the dream. I found that most of the business stuff, which I've done very well, and I've helped literally thousands of people through $1 Million Weekend. It's over once you can overcome yourself and face some of these things that are hard, and they're not as hard as they think. You just have to get going on it. A lot of the business stuff is pretty fun and it's easy. And then you really create like a side hustle for like yourself, a full hustle where you're like, I get to interview people and chat about business and life. Or myself, like I get to promote software deals, and that enables me to live in Texas and Barcelona half the year. In terms of, we've run this book like a tech company. I come from tech, worked for Zuckerberg, worked at Mint.com, started a lot of companies that didn't work and did work. So I will say it was fun and interesting to notice what people, in tech, you use a lot of surveys, a lot of data in running the business. So we surveyed every beta reader.
Chapter, right?
Yeah, we surveyed beta readers, and I've, looked through what people resonate with. And I thought it was going to be all my marketing. Like, here's how you do your marketing. Here's how you network with people. Here's how you do your calendaring. And it turns out most of the things that have been breakthroughs, Law of 100, super big breakthrough. Like, how do you commit to 100 things before you quit? And then you can quit. But most people quit too soon. So it's having a framework, which is Law of 100. So you stick with it 100 times. The now, not how one, number one by far biggest breakthrough for most people, which is not needing, like if you want to start a dog walking business or you want to start a new business, let's say an e-commerce site, you're like, well, I need a Shopify, I need a domain, I need to start a YouTube channel, I need to buy some ads, I need to get my landing page, I need to go to Alibaba and get the product. And then I'm like, why don't you just call 3 people right now and see if someone will buy? Why don't you put it up on Etsy? Just do a quick mock-up today, right now, put it on Etsy, see if anyone will buy it. Like, what do you mean? I'm like, yeah, right now. I'm like, oh shit. Yeah, find out. And then you can do all that stuff later. And that mentality has been a breakthrough. And then I'd say these asking challenges and building asking as a muscle and realizing the upside of it, I would say those 3 have been by far. The business stuff, like how do you make sure it's $1 million market? How do you do a 1-minute business model? How do you then scale it? That stuff, frankly, is fun. Once you can get past some of the parts that are a little bit more scary that people don't even realize and have fun with it all along the way.
Yeah, it's you can know how to do it all you want, but if you don't know like what the fear is or what, like just get started in general, it doesn't matter. You can have the business plan, but if you don't take the action, it doesn't matter, right? Like there's nothing without action at the core of it.
My business plan has always been just make money. Like,
yeah,
that's your plan.
Yeah.
And really, if you think about what is business, it's that someone has a problem they would ideally want solved.
So,
And start with yourself. Like, what's a problem you want solved? Like, I was even thinking today, I really hate paying DocuSign monthly. So I try to sign up for free trials and I cancel. So I'm like, fuck, man, I really hate these monthly subscriptions. Could I sell other people on a one-time payment only subscription, like document signing tool? I'm like,
yeah.
probably. Maybe let me go contact people and see if anyone will pre-order it. So I was on the phone earlier today with Dan Putt from Reboot.io. He's my business coach. It's like, Dan, what do you use for document signing? Good. How much you use it? Good. How much does it cost? If I had something today, right now, for $29 for life, would you pay for it right now? Would you Venmo me, PayPal, cash, crypto, Wire, Western Union, whatever? I'll collect it any way possible. He's like, yeah, I would. Okay. Right now? Great. So it's been, the plan though is what's the problem you have that others ideally have that you can then work on and end up making a living out of, but you have to figure that out versus sitting on the sidelines waiting to be ready for it, which there's never, the right time is now.
The right time was yesterday, man. I think of it.
I don't know. Yesterday passed.
Yeah, man. Like, I lost a lot of family growing up, and so like you said earlier, it's like the what if of like working for someone else. It terrifies me of getting to the end of my life thinking I wish I had rather than I'm glad I did. Is the kind of lens that I see it through. Is because there's going to be a lot more things that you wish you did, even if you failed at it, than the things that you did do and failed at. And so I think that perspective is massive to think about. Like, you failed and succeeded 24 companies until you created one that was 8-9 figures. Like, it makes sense that falls into place, right? Yeah,
I think someone's, I generally think it's like we regret the things we didn't do more than things we did. Like, if you think about it, you're like, oh, I didn't do that. But you don't almost regret, like, hey, I tried. You don't almost ever regret it. You're like, at least you gave something, and then you can learn from it and improve on it versus like, I should have done that thing.
Yeah, I think the challenge with people when it comes to going towards something is that they think that it's not going to work out, and so they don't give it their all from the jump. So like they have this belief that it's not going to work out, so why give it my all anyway? Why try? And like through your journey, I know after Facebook, it was a tough few months, years, and it was the underdog kind of mindset. How did you break out of that? What allowed you to get back into the groove of moving things forward?
The thing you don't want to hear is it took a decade. It took a decade and it sucked. And I think people can do that a lot faster. I was frustrated. I was really frustrated, and I was, a victim. I was really a victim. I was like, oh, they fired me, and I'm so disappointed. And have you ever talked to someone, you've done this, where have you ever talked to someone and then like something bad happened and then they're like, it turned out to be a great thing?
Yeah, the toxic positivity kind of perspective on things.
Yeah, but also at the same time, like, most of the bad things in life can also be blessings. It just depends how we want to look at it. And it's also the time frame, right? A bad thing can happen and it sucks today, but if you zoom out what it enables you to do, that could take, 6 months, 6 years, 60 years. And so I think for myself, it was a lot of frustration. And then I just felt I wanted to prove those people wrong. And then over time, you ultimately will end up having to prove yourself right. And that's just like not necessarily needing these other people to make you feel good, but just feeling how you can feel good yourself, which I would candidly say it probably didn't really truly start happening until maybe like 38, which is a fucking long time, man. And so how do you get there sooner? I would say be more intentional with partner selection. So if you're dating, like, how are you choosing someone that really lines up the same values? Like my partner, Mafe, super positive. She's just so kind. And it's maybe a kinder person. With work, how do you really find work that you're just like, I would do this for free? And I think that's one of the best ways to work. Like, go work for free if you have to get going, which I've done, and then do that work. And then guess what? The freedom number we talk about in the book, you can actually make money doing it most times. There's so many YouTube channels. There's so many businesses. You've seen on my YouTube channel as well, people getting rich in weird ways. And I think that's so inspiring to realize there's no right way to do it. And then how do you, kindly work on yourself on an ongoing basis? And I do wish I would have done a lot more of that sooner. But I'm so fucking glad it happened by 41 and not 61. And it does take time. I think what I've noticed is that we're very impatient. And it's just like, how do we be a little more patient with ourselves? Like, hey, all this stuff will work out. And that over time has led to a place where feeling more content. Like, I have enough. Like, I have enough money. I don't need more. Like, more comes great. But I don't need to keep chasing outside for that or chasing more views. Like, million subs, cool, fine. My goals are less ambitious now. And I'm excited about that because they're more sustainable. Like, I can do these things for a very long time, where most people, my mom does a watermelon diet. She'll eat like watermelon for a month. I'm like, you're not going to last. Mm-hmm. And most of the successful people, every billionaire I know, it took 20 years, but they all got started. and then they found a way to make it sustainable for a long period of time. And then it's turned out for them, for me, for others very well.
Yeah. When you say that, I had a conversation with Seth Godin, and that was the one thing I took away from that was he wishes he was more patient when in his early years. 21 international best-selling author, released a lot, but still wishes he was more patient about it. And it's funny that there's that dichotomy there. And when you speak on the perspective of good things happening or bad things happening, it's all how you view it. The thing that I think about is if something bad were to happen to you today, but it led to something good 3 years from now, would you still consider it as bad because it's just a label that you place on it? Because
Totally.
I grew up as a victim as well. Like I said, I lost a lot of family growing up, felt like life was happening to me. Only when I asked, how is this happening for me, did it open up a new opportunity and actually help me propel moving forward, which is just a whole different lens. You see through life through a different lens, you take different action kind of thing.
Yeah, there's like the phrase I think about often, this is from Adam Gilbert, is take your power back.
Yeah.
And I'll call him being like a little bitch. I'm like, oh, I haven't done this in a while, thank God. But I was like complaining about my work, or complaining about this person at work, or complaining about my partner, or complaining about myself. And he's like, and he's like my best friend. He's always looking out for me. He's like, dude, you're being a victim here. How are you taking your power back? I'm like, no, but it's their fault. And he's like, how are you taking your power back? You're giving them all your power. I was like, oh shit, man, I hate you. I'm calling up another friend who's going to give me better support now. But that was the advice I needed. And then you've heard this, the Chinese, I believe it's a Chinese fable with the horse.
I think
the
so.
Guy who gets, I think this is just Andy Dunn, the founder of Bonobos, told me a long time ago. I always loved it, where a guy was sick, so he couldn't go to war, and the guy says, "Yeah, it's a blessing or a curse." Yeah, feels like that story is pretty known now, but I remember hearing it years ago. The idea is like sometimes the blessings turn out to be curses, and sometimes the curses turn out to be blessings. I guess I don't know what the point of that is, but generally with our attitude, it can all work out. I think that's kind of crazy, by the way. Like we can have the same exact life and two people just look at it differently. Yeah. And so just maybe for everybody out there looking at their lives maybe a little bit differently, like, hey, I had this day job that sucks. Great. How's that going to inspire me to start my own business? How's that going to, maybe I don't like my partner, she sucks or he sucks. Great. I can go find someone better, but now I learned what I didn't like, so I can find the next partner who's even be better than that. Eventually you find it. You're like, oh, it's pretty damn cool.
Yeah. The maybe mindset is like we label something like we know that it's going to be this way, it's going to have this kind of impact on our life, but we don't know. I think that's the perspective is maybe it might turn out that way. Maybe that is a bad thing. Maybe it is a good thing. Maybe like we genuinely don't know. And that's why, like you said earlier, like having a 10-year vision is not as good as having a 1-year vision because the vision's going to change. We don't know what that's going to look like. And I bet as you've grown in AppSumo, that vision has evolved over time. When you first started, probably even from year 1 to year 2, it probably expanded and made you think way bigger from the beginning.
Yeah. I mean, it's so cool to be an entrepreneur because you can create your future. You can literally create the future you want. And I would say my perspective has changed. 2 things that I'd recommend for everyone is like, how do you practice optimism?
Yep.
And it's so hard when things suck, man. It's so hard, but it's noticing it. Like, my girlfriend's pregnant, and so that's been crazy, and that's super cool and wild. And this episode's coming out.
Congratulations!
Thank you. Which I never thought that was possible. Even
I
never thought I'd meet a great partner. But it's interesting even that to practice optimism. Like, oh, is the baby going to be okay? Is it what if future out there that's scary? It's like, well, let's just be optimistic. I can't control it, so there's no point in having anxiety about that. But I can keep optimistic. That's totally my choice. Like the one thing I love about immigrants, and most of the people at AppSumo are immigrants. They all can work as, and this is the immigrant. I don't know what you call it, but immigrant approach. And this is what we've had a lot of success at AppSumo. They all can control their attitudes, and they all can control the amount of effort. And that's universal. Everyone can do that. You can control your effort and control your attitude. And I noticed that at AppSumo because I'm like, damn, you immigrants are great. Give me more of them, right? And everyone have the immigrant mentality. And my dad came from Israel, didn't speak English. And so it's just like, well, he can control his effort, and you control his attitude, and he worked his ass off on that. The other thing I would say for optimism, and talked about AppSumo in the future for everyone is, and I learned this from a student recently, someone who read $1 Million Weekend. He's like, put it on the calendar. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, put it on the calendar. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, have shit to look forward to. Put it on the cow. And in entrepreneurship, in our lives, like the more that we do have things, like as much as being present today, have things you're like, man, how cool would it be if I have a sick house in Austin and a sick house in Barcelona? Cool. All right, put it on the calendar. See if you can actually do that. Or even a day, like put something on your calendar today, like go out to a cool restaurant or go for a cool activity. Like go rollerblading. I actually did rollerblading at a rink recently. Surprisingly fun. But put it on the calendar. So the bigger concept there, though, in general, is have things to be looking forward to. I think, anticipation is one of the best things in life.
Yeah, that is dopamine. It's not the achieving of it, but it's the anticipation of achieving it.
The achieving, fuck, man. Sometimes I wish it felt better, but it really is just that, when people always say these cliche shit, like every cliche thing is true. It's just annoying.
Yep.
Like enjoy the journey, not the destination. I'm like, shut up, dude. I'm trying to get rich. I don't need a journey. I just want to be rich. But I will say that really it's all these hardships. It's like me going to India, trying to find myself, realizing I'm myself. I've always been myself. Same for everyone out there. And these journeys really is the whole thing. Like, look at Titanic. It's the top 3 selling movie all time. Everyone knows the ending, but we still watched it. Yeah. Why? Because we want the journey. And so thinking about for ourselves, like, Joseph Campbell, The Hero's Journey, the picture of 1,000 faces, a hero of 1,000 faces, just like, how do we be more mindful of our own hero's journey and then face these things? Just like with me in the $1 Million Weekend. It was like, can I do this? Do I know these things? Have I not started 7 different businesses that have made over $1 million? Yes. Have I not helped now lots of people, thousands, tens of thousands do it themselves? I'm like, yeah, I'm like feeling pretty fucking good. And am I proud of this book? Yeah, I worked my ass off for years. And I do believe it helps people that want to change their lives with business, want to change, like, getting weekend money, getting grocery money, whatever that is.
Yeah. The one book that you've spoken about a lot in other podcasts, I want to know your perspective on it, is A Million Miles in 1,000 Years by Donald Miller. I want to say it encouraged you to bike across America. And what was it about that book that struck a chord with you?
I'm glad that people know. Dude, I should get like an affiliate commission. Maybe I'll do like a book website.
You absolutely should.
We'll see. No, I'm just happy to be able to find that book. I'm Jewish, not really religious, and he's a Christian author, talking about Jesus and stuff. And so I think that's even cooler that I like the book.
Resonate, right?
And
yeah.
What's that?
That you resonated with it. Like, it's cooler.
Yeah, I mean, that's super cool. Yeah. We can learn in a lot of different places from a lot of different people. And why I like A Million Miles in 1,000 Years is it's a story, right? We learn through stories, not through like numbers and things. We really learn through a story. That's what you remember in things. Like in this book, my dad dies is one of the stories, and people are like, oh shit. That's like, but for them, it's a story for themselves that they can take away in their own lives. And so Donald Miller has stories about how he hated his life. And it's really interesting that he wanted to live an interesting life, and he was frustrated about all these different areas not being interesting. And then he realized it was his responsibility to change it all up. And to live an interesting story, you just have to be an interesting character. And then you have to do interesting things, and you have to be around interesting people. And then through him realizing that, he was able to make changes for that. And I think that's just so exciting. You read this book, like, I read that book, and he biked America because he was fat and he didn't think he could do it. I was like, I want to take some big challenge. I want to do something kind of interesting. And I was like, I'm going to bike America. And that's what's so cool. We can learn from others, be inspired by others. And even with him, he was like, none of my friends are really inspiring me. Let me go find people that are inspiring. Okay, let's do that. Or he meets his woman. He's at dinner, and he's like, this is the person I'd love to spend my whole life with. And he's like, man, it's so crazy, but I got to just tell her right now. And he's like, hey, I think I'm going to spend my life with you. And she's like, I have a boyfriend. That's not going to work. Right. And then, but that led to him eventually ending up being with her. I think that I might be paraphrasing the story, but I just was so inspired and admired the fact that he did now, not how. He just got going. Yep. And then to be an interesting person, you just do interesting things. And I do think you look back on life from taking some fears, from facing some challenges. And I think most of us can and will feel very proud of ourselves.
Absolutely. I have 2 more questions for you. One is, there was a point in time, I want to say maybe it was after Facebook, around that time. You're making 6 figures, but you were living on you're in your aunt's basement. You were living on floors for a good amount of time. What was the emphasis of that, and how has your money mindset changed over time? Because I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with.
Oh my God, I love talking about this. I was rich then, I would say, making 6 figures. This is 10 years ago, 2007, 6. But I was so cheap.
Yeah.
I was driving like a Honda Del Sol. I don't know, it was maybe $3,000-$4,000. I was living on floors. Shout out Shivani, shout out Prakansh, shout out Sasha, people that let me live on their floors. I even brought a date home once. I remember I brought the date home, and I brought her into the room, and I was sleeping on a sleeping bag.
I remember this. Yeah.
Yeah, and then she left. And she's like, dude, I'm not sleeping with you on a sleeping bag on the floor while we watch videos on your laptop, loser. I think we all we are taught how to make money. We're not taught how to enjoy it. And this can start at very small levels. And I would say really until COVID, I never really enjoyed money. I just thought it was something that you create and you make. And, one of the books, Artist's Way, is also creating money can be a creative thing. I love that book. High recommendation. Top 10 ever, Artist's Way as well. Yeah, I love the book by Julia Cameron. It's amazing. And so when COVID happened, I said, oh man, I'm just being so cheap on everything, which is good, right? Being cheap led me to be able to do experiments, get to my freedom number, which I break down $1 million weekend, which was $3,000. And it led me to be able to do that easier. But I definitely could have been enjoying life a lot more. And I think especially, I don't know if it's the Jews or what, but we're taught like money can't buy happiness and don't buy into materialism and all these things. So I just didn't. And then as I started doing it, and again, it doesn't mean you have to buy Ferraris. Like I don't have a Ferrari. I have a Tesla, a Vespa, and a 2004 Miata. And I'm like so happy with I look at my Miata all the time. 2004 was like $6,000. I'm like, God damn, that's a cool car. I'm like this bald guy with earrings out there, looking like a commercial. And midlife crisis. Look at him. No, I'm just like, it's just fun. And I think around COVID time, I started just enjoying the money, not just trying to create more of it. Right? Yeah. I think more is a disease in our culture. Like, I want more of this. It's like, why? We have enough. It's good. Give out to others. Enjoy what you already have. And so I started just experimenting with enjoying money more, where I bought a $15,000 bike. I bike all the time. And that's generally like a thing you can do, which is like wherever you spend time, spend more money. So I sleep a lot. So I spend a lot on beds and stuff like that. I bike a lot, spend a lot of time on that. I live a lot in my house. So I spend a lot of money on that. And then areas I don't give two shits about, I don't spend money on. So I don't really have fancy cars. I do have fancy watches. I have a pretty fancy Rolex collection, but all of them, literally every single one represents a milestone. Yeah. So I'm really proud of those. And those are just cool. I look at them, and at first I kind of hated it because I was like, dude, you don't even wear a watch. But now I kind of like, man, this watch is when I got my private pilot's license. This watch is when I buy them a lot of times with me and a best friend. So one of my best friends, like we both got houses. And so I bought us matching watches. So now we wear matching watches. Or I said, when me and my friends got pregnant, Dan and Ian, I was like, I'll get us Pepsis, these like kind of fancy Rolexes. So we each now have matching Rolexes, and then we all have kids. That's awesome. Or soon to be kids. And so, and again, I've rented a Lambo. I've driven Ferraris. They're super cool. I just don't care to own it. But I would say that I would encourage everyone out there to enjoy the money more. And it's really nice not to have to choose, right? And guess what? If you're in entrepreneurship, there's no limit to your upside. Putting money in real estate, your best return is 7% a year, maybe cap rate. And then maybe if it appreciates. And then if you go in the S&P 500, 12%. And then if you go in treasury bills, 5%. And if you put in a checking account, 0%. But starting a business, creating a podcast, putting a YouTube channel, starting an e-commerce business, starting a lawn mowing business, starting a house manager business, starting any kind of business, literally there's no limit to the upside, which is unbelievable. And having more money has definitely made things that I can hire a cleaner coming this month and twice a week. I have duplicates of everything now in Barcelona where I live. So I have two $15,000 bikes, which is, I'm like, can I do this? Is this against the law? And it's not. It's available for and it's available. You can too. Really, you can too, man. It's not that I think I'm above average intelligence? Probably. But I think I just got going, and I kept going until it eventually worked. And then I'm enjoying now going. Like people ask, like AppSumo was worth a few $100 million. And people are like, you want to sell? I'm like, no, dude, what the fuck would I go do? I don't want a job. I get to like come and talk to people like you, share my wisdom, make a book, make fun YouTube videos, interviewing people, promote software deals, helping entrepreneurs. I'm like, this is my life. Yeah. And I really do believe it's available for everyone. I feel it, but you have to start. If you hate your job, if you hate your boyfriend, if you hate your health, guess what? Just you can change something right now. And it could be super small. Like go for the walk, break up with your partner, or start thinking about what kind of values you want. Start putting yourself out there, do one challenge from the book, and then by little bit by little bit. I can't say I was happy overnight. Overnight millionaire is the wrong thing. I think it's like overnight happiness. And I'd say my contentment has happened through therapy, small changes that have compounded over a long period of time.
Amazing, man. I feel like I could have a 2-hour conversation with you, well more. There's one last question I ask every guest. My question for you is, what belief are you currently unlearning?
What belief am I currently unlearning? Probably the one, this is not what I was expecting, but what's coming to mind is how much of my behavior is aligned to my priority.
Mm.
And I'm saying, it's interesting what we say are priorities, and then you look at your behaviors and your calendars. And so now that my girlfriend's pregnant, I'm prioritizing her. So it's interesting that everything is around her and the baby. And I'm unlearning that. I think I'd be like, oh yeah, my priority is this stuff, but I'm trying to do all of it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, well, I'll still do the work and I'll still finish work and I'm going to keep working, or I'm going to go out with my friends, or like tomorrow night, I'm going to go biking with another friend. And she's like, what's your priority? And so unlearning a little bit, making sure that my priorities are aligned to my actions versus trying to do everything. It would definitely be a belief I'm doing well on. I'm actually proud of my behavior on it, but it's definitely an adjustment. I'd say the other one for people out there, more for them too, is like unlearning what is possible in this lifetime.
Yep.
Like straight up. And I never believed I could find an awesome partner. I just didn't believe it could happen. That was a belief. And then I didn't believe I could have a baby. I didn't believe I'd finally get rich. I always thought I'd just always get close. And so I would say unlearning that we can have whatever we want. We really can. And it's fucking crazy. And it's awesome on the other side. And it all starts inside. So that is an unlearned belief as well.
It's the core of this podcast, man, and I'm grateful for the answer, grateful for your time. Thank you so much. Of course, the link to the book and all of your socials will be in the show notes. But is there anywhere you'd like to direct people or anything else?
Yeah, man. Everyone go $1,000,000weekend.com. Take the 48-hour challenge to change their lives. Even if they don't want to be a millionaire and they don't want to be an entrepreneur, they can at least be creative, and then they have the option. Yeah. And I believe everyone can be an entrepreneur. And so in 48 hours, they can do something and realize like, holy shit, there's a lot more out there that I could do than I even expected. And I've learned more through business than anything else.
Thank you, man.
So yeah, $1,000,000weekend.com.
Awesome.